So, the season is over. It is Monday, the 26th of May. Arsenal have no more games of this season. In fact, our next game, as you can see, is on the 23rd of July, where we face AC Milan. I can't lie to you, I feel really disappointed in Arsenal. Seeing Liverpool lift that trophy, the Premier League, really hurts. The fact that we're not in a Champions League final. I saw Newcastle and Crystal Palace win at Wembley in their finals, and it really hurts. I can't sit here and deny that this season has been an embarrassment in terms of the Premier League, how we have fallen, how we have been very bad in the stages. But yeah, in the last game we did beat Southampton 2-1. We did end with a 1-0 win over Newcastle. Newcastle still got Champions League football, which means that we won't be signing Isaac, which actually annoys me. But I thought today I'd talk about the league as the season's wrapped up. The highs, the lows, do a tier list of all the players this season, and then talk about my favourite game and the game I hated the most. So if you're new, hit the like button and subscribe. We're almost on 750. Yeah, I'm a bit sad. I'm a bit sad. Also, shout out to the women's team. They won the Champions League in it. They've been brilliant. I was really happy for them when they lifted that trophy, beating Barcelona, beating Lyon, Real Madrid. You know, even coming through against Bayern Munich in the group stages. They worked really hard to get there to qualify. They deserve it. They deserve it because they've raised the badge. You know, they've given the badge a little bit of pride, whereas the men's team have disappointed. But yeah, I thought I would talk about the season, the players, um, but I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. When I look at this Premier League table, I'm really angry. Liverpool winning the league with 84 points. I didn't expect that at the start of the season. You know, when you look at the season previously, Arsenal had 89 points and finished second, with Manchester City finishing with 91 points. And Arsenal had like over 90 goals scored. And this season it's only 69. And the only thing I could say is a positive for the Premier League season is that we only conceded 34 goals. You know, less than a goal a game. David Raya, Golden Glove winner alongside Matt Sells, who's been brilliant. Although I will say that pundits have massively overrated Nottingham Forest because they've overachieved. The way they've fallen to get seventh place is a massive disappointment, despite their high standards. And they've conceded more goals than Man City, yet Man City's defense isn't getting enough recognition. They've conceded more goals than Chelsea. Chelsea's defense ain't getting more recognition. Chelsea actually done well to get top four. Let's not deny that with the 69 points they've got. But like really, really angry, gutted, disappointed. The fact that we've only scored 69 goals, the fact that we've drawn like 14 games in the Premier League hurts. And I'm not going to lie, the majority of those games, when you look into it, have actually been marred by refereeing decisions. Um, I don't care if people think I'm bitter, but the league title was wrapped when that video of David Cook coming out when he cussed out Klopp, because they had to do damage reputation for Liverpool. They felt under pressure to do that. And, we've not been playing particularly great, but in the majority of those draws, we've been good enough to win, and that won't change. The start of the season, we ended up beating Wolves, 2-0 win, yet we were still having refereeing decisions go against us. Gabriel Jesus, somebody has touched his bum in the club, that gets you a punch in the face. That gets you jail time, a court meeting. Nah, instead a player does that to Jesus just pushes him. He gets a yellow card. You then go into the 1-0 draw against Brighton. Third game of the season, and Declan Rice is sent off. Therefore, he misses the North London derby against Tottenham. Insane. Like, you look into it, that 1-0 win is one of the best wins of the season. The way we held on to win. scoring from a set piece. We defended brilliantly despite not having Rice there. Looking into that game, it was absolutely full of pride. Like, even though they were arguably the better team, they still created no chances. But Arteta will sit there and say they deserve to win that game. But then we'll talk about why that feels so silly later on in the video. But yeah, we win 1-0 against Tottenham, and you're there like, first few games of the season has not been too bad. Like, it's a good start. First game of the Champions League, draw against Atalanta. Double save from Rayo, who's been incredible. Then a 2-2 draw against Man City. And then you look at the start after that. You beat Bolton, Leicester, PSG, Southampton 3-1. It was pretty good. Yet we had 2 games where we were disturbed by refereeing decisions. Leandro Trossard getting sent off. Arsenal having to park the bus with 10 men, knowing how good Man City are. Having seen them demolish us 5-0 a few years back with some of the crop available now. It really baffles me, Then the 2-0 defeat to Bournemouth, our first defeat of the season. Heartbreaking. Saliba getting sent off. But Bournemouth on the day were the better side, But even then, you look into the season, that we could have won all of those games, had 4 extra points despite that defeat, We win against Shakhtar where we actually had a handball, a penalty. We win the game 1-0. But that Trossard goal, poof, Trossard gets a penalty, misses the penalty, and it was a stinker. As a Shakhtar get an own goal, they scored an own goal, and it was unfortunate. But then this was on a run of form where Havertz was scoring in every home game. Then the 2-2 draw against Liverpool. Again, robbed by refereeing decisions. Havertz, scored, yet the goal was ruled out for a foul by Kivior to Bosley. The referee blows too early. How does that work? Then lose 1-0 to Newcastle. Fair and square. Isaac heads in a lovely Anthony Gordon cross. That game was the first game I had no annoyance with the referee. No frustration. We lost to the better team. They actually proved their worth, having beaten us 1-0 last the season before with refereeing decisions going their way, with Gordon scoring after Joelinton fouled Gabriel. The ball had gone off. There was an offside. That hurt. You then go into the 1-0 game against Inter Milan. Unlucky, by the way, to lose that refereeing decision again. But where it's the Champions League, there's been a bit of consistency. Çalhanoğlu scores. Inter Milan make the final after that. Then you get the 1-1 draw against Chelsea. Look, man, that game was a good game of football. I'm not even going to lie to you. Chelsea played well on that day. We were unlucky not to win that. Trossard missing an absolute sitter. And then there was Saliba in a better angle to shoot. We then get some brilliant wins on the way, like 1, 2, 3, 4 games unbeaten, beating United. All of this is grey and green, which was nice. We go unbeaten we beat United, Saliba, Timber, getting the goals, fantastic. 2-0, 5-0, 2 win, 5-1 win over Sporting and West Ham. Gyökeres, couldn't handle Gabriel or Saliba as Arsenal ran riot, one of the biggest wins. Saka, Havertz contributing in a 5-2 win. I think that was the only time we actually got a penalty all season, with the Saka one. But yeah, great game. 1-0 draw against Fulham. That happened. Missing a clear-cut chance in the end. Actually, we score. Martinelli offside. Absolutely abysmal. We then retaliate well with a 3-0 win against Monaco. But then this abysmal performance 0-0 against Sean Dyche's Everton. Abysmal. We then come back from 2-1 down to actually 1-0 down to win, to beat Palace. And Nketiah scoring in that game. There was a massive chance to win the EFL Cup, which is a massive disappointment. Jesus then continues his run of form, 5-1 victory, 1-0 win over Ipswich, 3-1 win over Brentford, who are a very good side. But then another game marred by referee decisions. Handball, how is João Pedro getting a penalty for Saliba heading the ball before he heads him? I don't understand. But then it all went downhill from here. The worst defeat of the season is this 2-0 defeat to Newcastle and this 1-1 defeat to Manchester United. I don't care what anybody says. These 2 games right here have single-handedly ruined the season. Because Newcastle, they was never going to bottle a 2-goal lead at St. James's Park in a competition they're so desperate to win, where they haven't won a trophy in 70 years. With an ownership that backs them, with a goal scoring is that they was never going to bottle that game. So, but then to lose to United on penalties, Martin Odegaard missing that penalty. We had referee a decision that goes our way. Havertz, falls over, gets the penalty. Not a penalty in my book. Yet we still crashed out to Manchester United. The worst Man United team I've ever seen. Finished 15th. Didn't win a trophy. Lost to Tottenham 4 times, including a Carabao Cup defeat, a Premier League defeat, and that. It's absolutely astonishing. Yeah, we responded well, with our second win over Spurs, but then a 2-2 draw against Villa, 2-0 up, embarrassing. Then you got this game here against Wolves where Lewis Skelly sent off for no reason. It just fell apart from here. It just fell apart from here in those 2 games because getting knocked out in the third round of the FA Cup is embarrassing. I can understand if it was to Liverpool like we did last season or Man City. You lose those 2 games, you could be heartbroken. But that was United at home. Well, we should have scored. We should have buried those chances. And that, for me, when you look back into those games, how has Bruno Fernandes had all that time and space in the world to have a shot and goal like that and score? How have they gone down to 10 men, playing an extra 60 minutes, and Altay Bayern is making save after save? One of the worst goalkeepers in the Premier League. When you look at the starting lineup that came as well, Gabriel Jesus then comes off injured in the 40th minute. This for me is the worst game of the season because that's when it all started to fall down. And yeah, we had injuries. Saka was injured before that. I think he was in the. But this team should be beating that United team. This team of players with this defensive goalkeeper, right back, Erdogan, Jorginho, Marino, Martinelli, Havertz, Jesus should be beating a team with Garnacho, Højlund up front. There's no excuses. No excuses. And it really makes me feel sick. We'll talk about the signings in a second. We'll talk about the players of the season after this. Make sure you continue hitting the like button, guys. But that's where the season for me just started to fall apart as we lost ground in the league, drawing 2-2 with Villa, as I said. And it just starts to get worse from here. Girona, we done well. Waneri shining a light. But then he scores a wonderful goal against Man City, which for me is the second best win of the season. The second best win of the season. Absolutely dominated Man City. Absolutely battered them. 12 shots on goal. Forget your cloud storage for now. I don't care. Created many chances. This is why I don't believe in XG, because how can they have an XG of closer to 1? But we win 5-1. It makes no sense to me. We're all over them. When you watch the game with your eyes, you can see that Arsenal were all over them. And this was a beautiful moment. Like Waneri, wrapping a brilliant finesse shot into the back of the net. Lewis Skelly, becoming a star of the scene, getting a lovely goal. Declan Rice with 2 assists. Partey with a good goal. Havertz, goal and assist. Everybody played their part. And you see those reds and those oranges from that Man City side. Absolutely silly. But then the season just ultimately crashed out. 2-0 defeat to Newcastle again. Then this season here, the third worst defeat of the season. This 1-0 defeat to West Ham. And you're thinking, how did you lose that? Man City end up crashing out to Liverpool the next day. But losing 1-0 to West Ham at home, yes, there was a refereeing decision with Lewis Skelly, but they were 1-0 up. We didn't deserve to win that game. A 0-0 draw with Forest ensued. We go on a run without winning games. Although Nottingham Forest done well. We then hammer PSV 7-1, which was brilliant. A draw followed against Man United. And at that time, we were all guns blazing in the Champions League. We draw 2-2 against PSV. Sterling has his best game in an Arsenal shirt. We then come back with a good 2 victories over West London sides, Chelsea and Fulham. Look, Unbeaten again against Chelsea. Nice. That's cool. A 1-0 draw at Everton with David Moyes. Credit to Everton, they've been superb. But then Jack Harrison's getting a penalty. That's never a penalty on Miles and Skelly. How does that work? 1-0 up, in control of the game. Yeah, another game costed by refereeing decisions. But then I have my eye surgery. We then hammer Real Madrid 3-0. We then hammer them 2-1. For me, those two games is the best victories of our career, like our season. Those two free kicks from Declan Rice, absolutely insane, insane. Yeah, like then draw against Brentford. Brentford. I think there was a foul in the build-up. They should have been a red card, but they played well for the draw. But then that 2-1 win, Martinelli running through on goal. Arsenal playing to win that game. Getting a win at the Bernabeu against the champions. One of the biggest clubs in world football. Crazy. A 4-0 win over Ipswich ensued as well. Like, getting some momentum back. But then seeing this 2-2 draw against Palace, Mateta does really well, holding off Erdegaard, getting a lovely goal. Kind of knocks our momentum a bit, to be honest. Had we won the game, we'd have more of a chance to beat PSG, bit more momentum. And then what happened. Ousmane Dembele scores. We couldn't get a response. We then couldn't respond against Bournemouth. I don't know how Arteta's not angry with that performance, but then wants to be angry at Liverpool. I don't get it. I mean, then we lose 2-1 to PSG. Heartbreaking. But these games for me ain't the worst defeats. Because I saw Arsenal try. I saw Arsenal give their all. At the end of the day, they were beaten by moments of quality from Kvaratskhelia, from Ousmane Dembele, a deflection. Hakimi proving his worth, being brilliant, scoring a good goal. It hurts, looking into these games. We could have won. That Tifo knocks some momentum out of it. But credit where credit's due to PSG. They played well in that game, you know. And I don't agree with this. Is why I don't agree with XG, because I didn't think we deserved to win that game, And this was a game where the referees didn't make a huge deal out of things. Didn't change the game. Didn't swing the game. We lost fair and square to Man United, to PSG, to Newcastle, but the draws that we've had weren't fair and square for Arsenal, and it's bitter, And then we respond well with a 2-2 draw, despite going 2-0 down at Anfield against the champions, you're already champions. And then the season ends there with a Newcastle victory and a Southampton victory, and it's bitter. I feel bitter. Proud of Arsenal to get to the semi-finals of the Champions League, but gutted to lose in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. 74 points in the league, not good enough. We should be getting 90. We should be reaching a cup final in the Carabao Cup. To be honest, that was our competition. We should have won. We should have been in the final with Liverpool. Newcastle, credit where credit's due, winning it. Crystal Palace winning it as well. They done really well. We couldn't even beat United. And they lost to Fulham. So, yeah. It really, 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 really hurts. Like, losing those games, drawing those games, it makes me feel sick to my stomach. And that's down to the signings that we've made. I think Marino's been the best signing of the season alongside Raya. Like, Raya came last season, but that deal was made permanently on the 7th of July. So you could say Raya's been the signing of the season, then Marino, then Calafiori, who's had some decent moments in an Arsenal shirt, goals against PSV and Man City were good. He had some good appearances. Even the 1-0 win against Newcastle coming off the bench, he was class. But he's been marred with injuries, which is a massive shame. Marino's come clutching moments. Score against in the 2-0 win over Leicester. The goals against Chelsea, Liverpool. That big moment against Real Madrid. Brilliant. Even an assist for Saka. Class. He has been a good signing, despite having to play as a striker. You know what I mean? And then you go down to Neto and Sterling, who I think Neto's been arguably the worst signing of the season, even worse than Sterling, because Neto coming on loan, played one game and was absolutely bad. At least Sterling, he actually got an assist in the Champions League, But yeah, we're gonna go into the players now. But yeah, that's my season review. Like, it's been abysmal. It's been a 4 out of 10. Yeah. A 4 out of 10. Like semi-finals of the Champions League is the reason why we got to is 4. On another season with those results, we could have been out of the Champions League. With the way we fell so far, I'm angry. Like to draw at United, we should have beaten United home and away and in the FA Cup. But yeah, positives: the wins against Spurs. Again, unbeaten against Man City despite going down to 10 men. We should have had 6 points. Should have had 4 points at least against Liverpool. We are a competitive side. That's the biggest thing. We are competitive against PSG. We did beat them 2-0 at the Emirates. Injuries have impacted us, but yeah,